Imagine living during the Great Depression. Banks were closing, jobs were disappearing, families were just wondering how they're going to survive. For many Americans, this wasn't a political issue or even an economic one. It was personal. It affected what they ate, where they lived, how they worked, and how they viewed their future. Then Franklin D. Roosevelt became president, and his response became the New Deal. I believe the New Deal deserves to be not only remembered but celebrated. The New Deal wasn't perfect, and it didn't fix every problem that the Great Depression had, but it quickly responded to real suffering. It created programs that helped Americans directly, and it changed the relationship between the federal government and everyday citizens. To understand why the New Deal mattered so much, we first need to understand how serious the Great Depression was. The first reason the New Deal deserves to be celebrated is because it responded to real suffering. The Great Depression was not just a difficult time, it was a national crisis that left millions of Americans desperate for help. The Social Security Administration's historical background page states that after the 1929 stock market crash, unemployment exceeded 25%. About 10,000 banks failed, and the gross national product fell from $105 billion to $55 billion by 1932. Those numbers show that the New Deal was not created during a normal economic struggle. It was created during a time when people were losing jobs, banks were failing, wages were dropping, and families were scared about how they were going to make it. But the Great Depression was not only about statistics, it was also about the real people who were asking for help. The Social Security Administration also shares letters from older Americans from back during the Great Depression. One 72-year-old woman said she had no one to care for her, while a 6-year-old widow asked for help with basic needs like medical care, food, fuel. That makes the Depression feel more personal. These were not just numbers in a textbook, they were real people who were hungry, sick, lonely, and afraid. One reason the New Deal deserves to be remembered is because it showed the struggles of ordinary people and that they mattered. Now that we've looked at the suffering that led to the New Deal, we can look at the programs that were created to help. The second reason the New Deal deserves to be celebrated is because it created programs that gave Americans jobs, support, and hope. Roosevelt's administration didn't just talk about the problems, they took action. According to the Library of Congress, Roosevelt's New Deal introduced banking reforms, relief programs, work programs, and agricultural programs to address the crisis. These efforts were meant to provide immediate help while also restoring confidence in the economy. One important New Deal program was the Civilian Conservation Corps. The CCC gave jobs to unemployed young men through conservation and public works projects. These workers earned a wage while improving parks, forests, and public lands. I think the CCC is one of the strongest examples of why the New Deal is worth celebrating because it helped people directly while also creating lasting benefits for our communities. Another major program was the Works Progress Administration. The Franklin D. Roosevelt's Presidential Library and Museum explained that the WPA was created as a part of a second wave of New Deal legislation in 1935. The WPA provided jobs for laborers, but it also employed artists, writers, musicians, and authors. This shows that the New Deal was not only about roads and buildings, it also helped support culture, creativity, and just different types of work. One of the most lasting New Deal programs was the Social Security Act. The Franklin D. Roosevelt Presidential Library and Museum also confirms that the Social Security Act provided unemployment compensation along with old age and survivors benefits. This helped create a safety net for Americans in need. Social Security is still one of the most recognized parts of the New Deal today, which shows how lasting its impact became. These programs helped Americans during the Great Depression, but the New Deal also mattered because it changed the role of the federal government in people's lives. The third reason the New Deal deserves recognition is because it changed American society by creating a stronger connection between the federal government and ordinary citizens. My history textbook, America: Narrative History, explains that Roosevelt was more concerned about the forgotten man, referring to working class Americans who faced hardships during the Great Depression. I think that phrase is important because it showed what the New Deal represented. It was not only focused on banks, businesses, or politics, it was focused on everyday Americans who were trying to survive. Before the New Deal, many Americans didn't expect the federal government to play such a large role in economic relief. The New Deal expanded the idea that the government had a responsibility to help during a national crisis. That was a major change because it made the problems of ordinary people a national concern. The New Deal helped restore hope during one of the hardest times in American history. Many Americans needed more than encouragement. They needed jobs, food, banking security, and support for the future. Roosevelt's programs showed people that the government was trying to respond to their needs. Even though the New Deal did not solve every problem, it helped many Americans believe that the country could move forward. Today, I explain why the New Deal deserves to be celebrated. It responded to the suffering of ordinary Americans, created programs like the CCC, WPA, and Social Security that provided jobs and support, and it changed the relationship between the federal government and everyday citizens. The New Deal did not fix every problem, but it gave many Americans help, work, support, and most importantly, hope. When people were afraid and unsure of what would happen next, the New Deal's programs helped provide relief, create jobs, and restore confidence in the nation's future. So, when we look at the New Deal, we're not just seeing a list of government programs, we're looking at a turning point in American history, and that's why I'm making a big deal about the New Deal.